Today is our semi-monthly trip to the big box store for large quantity groceries. Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. Today, Irene and I are up in Flagstaff. We're taking the animals to the vet. Jack the dog and Issa the cat. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive up here. Obviously an hour and 20-minute back. So we're going to do a few other things while we're up here. For our friends in northern Arizona that we would normally meet with when we come up here, sorry, we're on a very tight schedule today. We had to come up early for the vet appointments, and we've got to get back to the homestead today to get some other things done. Next trip, maybe. And there's Jack. Hi, Jack. Jack got an injection today. Hopefully it's going to help his arthritis. Issa's in the back of the car in her cage. She's sleeping, which is great because we don't need a squalling cat. Irene's the designated shopper today. She's inside buying some bulk items. Woo! Well, our trip to Flagstaff to the vet's office went very, very well. Issa has all of her inoculations, so that's set for another year or two for some of them. Jack had his first injection for some arthritis he has in his rear legs. He has some patella issues. That's the part that's equivalent of your kneecap. So we're going to see if that helps him out. We go back in later this week for the second shot, and then 2 more times next week. He's getting to be an old dog, but he's still getting along quite great. He does get a little sore in the morning or after he's been doing a lot of really heavy exercise. I want to finish our discussion about saving tomato seeds and how I do it and why I do it the way I do it. First, let's talk about Johnny's Selected Seeds. Well, you may not know it, but Johnny's Seeds was originally called Johnny Apple Seeds. That was about 1974. After a few years, there was a company that already was using the name Johnny Apple Seeds, so the founder of Johnny's Selected Seeds had to change the company's name. Let's talk about why it's called Selected Seeds. Johnny started off doing a lot of really specialty plant seeds in the early days. We're talking about in the late 1970s. The whole point of his company was to make rare or difficult to find seeds available. In particular, he was importing seeds from Japan for Asian vegetables. So he was actually doing a lot of things like that. Well, what's that got to do with tomatoes? The answer is the process that Johnny's goes through to select tomatoes that are going to be used for extracting seeds. Really quite interesting process. They grow an entire field of one specific variety of tomato to use for seed stock for the next year's crops. The way they do this is they go through the field by hand, but with a machine to help the process. They individually select particular fruits from individual plants. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, even if you have an open pollinated tomato, you want to make sure that you're not introducing some new bad traits to the tomato. Genetics do drift over time for a lot of reasons. Some of it can be stress, some of it can be chemicals, some of it can be cosmic rays. What they'll do is they'll go through the field and they'll find the plants that have the characteristics that they want in the final plants that other people are going to be growing. And then from those plants, they choose the best fruit. And then they put them into a bucket. Well, actually they don't do it that way anymore. They put the tomatoes into a machine that crushes it up and sends all that slurry into a container that they then put water, yeast, and sugar in. Why yeast? And why sugar? Well, it's fermentation. What they're trying to do is they're trying to kickstart the fermentation process so that they can get the gel that coats the seeds to disassociate from the seed. And that's what we do when we ferment seeds here at home. In the last show, I described this jar that was full of tomatoes that were busy decomposing. It's quite a nasty mess, but it works just fine. It's not terribly dissimilar to what Johnny's does on their farm. In brief, what you do is you put the pieces of tomatoes that you're interested in into, in my case, a jar, or you can put it into a heavy-duty baggie, mark it so you know what kind of seeds you're trying to extract, add a little bit of water once the tomato is crushed up, and then agitate that mess a couple times a day until it's all been processed. What happens? The bits of the flesh will float to the top. Some of it will be in solution. And what you do is you pour that off. Rinse the seeds a few times and then dry them. CB from CB's Greenhouse and Garden has a great way that he dries his seeds. He uses a coffee filter, which is a fabulous idea. I use paper towels because I have them. They're easy for me to handle. Whatever works for you. Coffee filters, they come off easy. Paper towels absorbs the water pretty quickly. We live in the desert Southwest, so we don't have a lot of humidity to begin with, so our seeds dry pretty quickly. Let's talk some more about why fermentation. There's two ways to go about getting seeds prepared to be saved for storage. One is to rub the seeds, so you don't actually ferment them or anything. You take a material like a paper towel and you rub the seeds to get all the gel off the seed. And then you let it dry and you store it. If that works, it works fine for some home growers, but you don't get some of the benefits that you get from fermenting. What could you possibly get as a benefit from fermenting tomatoes to get the seeds extracted from the tomato flesh? It's pretty simple. There's some diseases that the mere process of fermenting the tomato causes those disease pathogens to be destroyed because they don't live in the seed, they live on the coating of the seed. So what you're doing is actually causing those pathogens to be destroyed. For most tomato pathogens, the easiest way to treat the seeds that you think might be infected or you want to keep any infection from happening is to use a solution of 10% commercial bleach. To disinfect your seeds using this bleach method, you put the seeds into the bleach water mixture, stir it frequently. I don't know how frequently is, but enough. And you want to do that for about 10 minutes. And I would say if you stir it 2 or 3 times a minute for 10 minutes, you're probably okay. Pour that water off and then rinse the seeds with running water for 5 minutes at a minimum. You want to get all of that chlorine off of the seeds. And then go ahead and dry them in the normal fashion. If I'm going to try to save the seeds from 2 varieties, I'm going to try to keep at least a 35-foot distance for home use. If I'm going to be a little more aggressive about trying to maintain the genetic purity of my stock, I'm going to have a barrier crop between my seed crop and any other crop of the same variety or the same species. You can use a barrier. It could be, floating row cover. Could also be something like an ornamental sunflower. So plant 2 or 3 rows of sunflowers. That will help control the pollen. The genetic diversity is not really important for most self-pollinating fruits like tomatoes. The pollen falls down from the anthers onto the pistil, so it's maintaining the genetic purity. But when you're still looking at selecting the tomatoes to save seeds from, look for tomatoes that don't have cracking, they don't have cat facing, those kinds of defects. You can influence how your future crops are going to turn out by selecting the right tomato. Well, I hope this provides some interesting information for you to work with. There's a lot more that goes on when you're trying to save seeds from your home garden. You have to be looking at an open pollinated source, an OP source, an heirloom source, all those kinds of terms. If you look for a hybrid, an F1 hybrid, you're not going to breed true in the next year. So you'll end up with a real mishmash of different kinds of plants. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications because Irene's doing a lot of stuff here. I'm doing a lot of stuff there. We're both doing some stuff together. It's fun. Thanks for watching. Bye. Don't forget to brainstorm. We do.